Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Stellaris for my in-game tutorial. If you haven't watched my out-of-game tutorial where I talk about how the different things in which you customize your empire and the effects it has, then I suggest you go watch that now. I will wait. Okay, so let's begin. Immediately we're going to talk about the UI and all these different windows that we have here. Let's just go left to right, which conveniently has various hotkeys. F1 through F6. So, we're going to start with the government. This is where your initial king is decided. The traits are randomized, your governing ethics, and your initial government type is all shown. Now, it's not a problem that says I have no heir. 5% chance each day a new heir will be nominated. If your ruler dies earless, it may provoke a succession war. This is very highly unlikely because 5% each day. That means within 20 days, within a month. So, shouldn't be too much of an issue. If you end up to be the unluckiest bastard in the world and do get a civil war, please let me know what happens, because this is statistically entirely unlikely. That said, we do have other things we need to look at, including the budget panel. This in particular only covers energy credit budget, but energy credits is for the most part only used for upkeep. Most buildings, like should I go down to the surface here and say, ooh, I want to build a farm, cost minerals. But you'll notice that it has a maintenance cost each month in energy credits. So keep that in mind. While you may use minerals for building, you kind of need, energy credits to maintain things. Don't run out of them. Some ship maintenance, there is a small mineral cost associated with ship maintenance as well, but that's generally negligible and you don't have to worry too much about it. There are also various economic effects that you may or may not have depending on your government type and any random events that you encounter throughout the game. Here, we have our policies. This is basically the laws screen. You can have a static war economy, all the way down to a versatile war economy. Keep in mind, a versatile war economy, huge production boost when we are losing defensive wars, and a corresponding loss of efficiency when winning offensive wars. Yeah. So, you can have anywhere between no change to your war economy regardless of war score to, you know what, screw you, 60%, extra production when you're losing horribly. It's, of questionable value, but actually a very interesting law. And there's a lot of theory crafting that can go on with it. I personally am a bit of a boring person and do prefer a static war economy. But depending on the situation, and if I'm on the back foot of military and getting attacked by my allies, versatile can come in handy. Slavery is either allowed or prohibited, depending on your possible rules. We talked about governing ethics before, and I did select collectivist, which means I can do certain things. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually tell me what is required here because I have it unlocked. Full. Has a militarist ethic, as you can see. You need the collectivist ethic in order to do purging. For now, though, we're going to prohibit slavery. That'll cheer some people up. Prohibit purging, light orbital bombardment only. Migration, primary species only and free migration are possible, as well as prohibited. As to whether or not migration is a good thing, I definitely say primary species migration is a good thing at the very least, because full planets will empty into your colonies, and you will, as a result, grow your population on a whole faster. Free migration, that depends whether or not you want other people to be able to move around and grow as well. Resettlement, I would generally actually prohibit this, because a lot of people are against resettlement in your empire, you'll find, and that will just make them happier, and very oftentimes I find that I don't need to resettle people, that if I just allow migration, then everyone's happy. Voting rights, this is entirely dependent on your government type, because I've currently selected a monarchy. Let's change it over to a plutocratic, I don't know if influence change government types. So I was going to change it over and show voting rights off, but no. Leadership, this is right now primary species only. As you develop society techs, you can include Xenos in this as well. Xenos being other races. And your first contact protocol can either be peaceful or aggressive. As a general rule, I keep it on peaceful. I think everybody keeps it on peaceful. I don't think I've run into an empire that's hostile on first contact. It's kind of weird. Yeah, this allows you to attack neutral entities. A lot of the time, I don't recommend it. So it's not really good, and it will anger a lot of people. I mean, if you're a militaristic empire, it might make sense for you to do that. But because we have the pacifist modifier here, we can have a look at the happiness right now. Right now, there's nothing particularly affecting them. Most laws don't really come into context on your home world and that. Only if, only once you start getting colonies will people start going like, I want to migrate when the planet's full. And orbital bombardment, you have to be really careful with. If you use limited orbital bombardment, we'll allow it. That should piss off my pacifist people. There. And on top of that, I can get up to an extra 10% from terror bombing, in air quotes, which is using limited or full orbital bombardment. So not only does the fact that I've changed the law actually affect the population and their happiness, using limited orbital bombardment will further affect the happiness of the people, which is not a good thing. And yeah. So other than that, yeah, you're free to change your laws however you want. I'd recommend changing them on a need-by-need basis, because most of them really don't come into play at the start of the game. It's easier to go, alright, this is what my empire is shaping out to be. I'll set the law to be this. In addition, there are edicts. You'll unlock additional edicts throughout the game, mostly from the society tech tree. I recommend that you go with some extra sciencey stuff here. If you happen to have the influence, which, you start with a base of 3, and if you don't have a Idenic monarchy, or enlightened monarchy, sorry, and your edicts cost 1, then you can still throw all 3 of these on and get what amounts to extra 10% research speed without any ethics divergence, at the cost of most of your influence. Generally speaking, though, it's probably best just to use free thought. Ethics divergence isn't that bad. It's practically unheard of on your homeworld. So at least at the start of the game, yeah, 0.5%, thanks to the capital world reduction, it's not a big deal on your homeworld. Once you start getting a more massive, sprawling empire, you might need to tone down and get some ethics divergence controls on there. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of people who disagree with your government, and that will lead to problems down the road. Now, technology-wise, it's divided up into 3 trees: physics, society, and engineering. Now, society, the most important research you can start with, if you can't guess, is New World's protocol. Genome mapping is pretty good too, with the extra 10% food. New World's protocol allows you to colonize new worlds. I shouldn't have to say as to why that's important. Some of the most important stuff you can get in physics is the power research, however. This affects ships in untold ways. The difference between each level of generator can allow you to put on far more shields or far more powerful weapons. And believe me, when you start getting to the end game, the amount of power that you have to work with is very limited. And energy management is a huge thing. Keeping ahead in power tech is good. And various things will pop up in engineering that you will find useful. In particular, we're just going to powered exoskeletons for the minerals, but in particular, shipyard upgrades are important. Spaceport upgrades. They're basically shipyards, though. So this is very important. In the first 80 to 100 years, you have the potential to get up to Tier 6 spaceports, which will allow you to put on a bunch of modules and allow you to build larger ships, which can have more power and more weapons. Some of the easiest way to do it. Unfortunately, right now, I do not have any spaceport modules researched, but one of the best modules, I should say, is the Orbital Hydroponics Yard. It's a very easy research in society that you, if you're lucky, will come across at some point. And that allows you to build a spaceport in orbit over a planet, and then give it the module to give it +3 food. This is particularly amazing for colonies, where, they need to grow real fast, and extra food means that they grow. Speaking of which, let's start talking about the resources. I mean, I haven't even gotten to the context tab yet, but we'll get there. So let's talk about the planet. The planet summary here shows the resource output of the planet, as well as down here is the food. Simply put, each person consumes 1 food, unless they have a particular modifier, such as the collectivist ethos. Here, that means their food consumption is reduced by 5%, meaning that despite having 7 people, I only consume 6.6 food. This is the planet's size, and we'll see why that comes into play very shortly. And this is mostly irrelevant. This is the sum of all the tiles. But here's the surface of the planet, which is divided up into tiles. And then if you total up the stuff here, you'll find it equals out to this. In addition, several of these places have buildings on them, and sometimes they don't. They just have a pop who's harvesting from the terrain itself and not an actual building. Instead here, we could build a hydroponics farm, which stacks very well with this, having +1 food there. But if we wanted to, say, build a mining network to get more minerals, we would have to overwrite the +2 food. So, generally speaking, if a tile produces a resource already, you just want to do that. And this goes for science as well, but you can build science labs, which produce all 3 kinds, and then specialize the science lab later. Power as well. Oftentimes you'll see terrain like this. And in this case, there's not necessarily a perfect answer. If I choose the power, I lose the minerals. If I choose the minerals, I lose the power. But, you know, choose one, depending on what you need. Sometimes you have to make the choices. And there are these. These are called tile blockers. Each kind of planet has its own unique tile blockers as well. So, for example, while your homeworld has industrial wastelands, this region is covered by ruinous industrial complexes and toxic soil, detritus from past ages of progress, as well as sprawling slums. This region is covered by vast shantytowns and slums filled with the poor and the outcast. It contributes nothing to society. You'll have to spend resources and time to clear these out. And as you go through and meet other planets, which why don't we do? Starting to the surrounding regions. Thanks to our wormhole generator, I can jump to any system inside this orange dotted line. So out we shall go. And in a matter of no time, now that I've unpaused the game, hey, there we are, Crown Prince. See, like I said, it's highly unlikely that you'll ever have a problem here, but we'll see. Fertility Preacher and Happiness, nice. That's good for food plus 10%. Deep Connections is also pretty good, and Resilient, later lifespan plus 25 years. Alright. So here we are, an arid world. Although it's not surveyed yet, we can tell our science ship to move here and begin surveying it. And we can start talking about that. Science ships are one of the kinds of civilian ships you have, including constructor ships. Science ships' primary job is to research special projects and survey systems. So, initially we're going to send our science ship out here to come over here and begin surveying this planet. It's an arid world. Unfortunately, our home planet is an Arctic world. This means that the arid world is not good for us and we cannot colonize it. We can eventually research the technology to colonize it, but I still wouldn't put my race down on there. Discovery of alien life. It's teeming with alien life. For the first time in history. So, on the surface of the planet, we see new tile blockers, different ones. Everything from deep sinkholes, to quicksand basins, to active volcanoes and dangerous wildlife. As technology goes on, missing technology, volcano removal, can only clear tile blockers on owned colonies. Those are the 2 errors we're getting. So as technology moves on, we'll get access to more ability to clear tile blocking, and no longer have too much of an issue. A lot of arid worlds around us, sadly. A tropical world, neither, again, something that we can colonize. So we have some issues. Lovely start. An Arctic world. This is one that we can, in fact, colonize. But what happens when you don't really have plans to colonize? Well, there is an alternative, thankfully. This is my territory, as it were. This red influence. But let's work on expanding that. Down here, we don't really have anything that we can colonize with. What we can do are build frontier outposts. Assuming we weren't poor, we could do that anyway. And this would actually actively expand our little circle here. And the problem with this circle is this is the only range that we can build mining and research stations in. You'll notice, for example, that this planet has a little gear in it. Resources too. We need to build a research station in orbit around the planet in order to acquire those resources. So, If we go to somewhere that's outside of our influence, then we will no longer be able to... Come on. Yeah, then we will no longer be able to build stations around these planets. Oh man, that's a lovely world there. Ooh boy, and an ocean world. Although we can't colonize that yet, we can definitely colonize that in the future. And another giant Arctic world. This is the system we needed. Alright. And as research continues... Oh hey look. Another thing there. So with our constructor ship, we can right-click on any planet and build a mining, terraforming, observation, or frontier outpost. The observation post is only for post-Neolithic primitives on the planet. The frontier outpost can only be built around stars. Terraforming stations require a advanced society tech, and mining stations you can just build right off the bat are kind of useful. Same with research stations.
System survey complete.
In addition to that, there is the military stations, but those can be built anywhere in the system. And because we chose Wormhole FTL, we can build wormhole stations, which are very important to us. Although I wouldn't build it this close, I would say come out here to this class G star here. And here's the whole galaxy. Ooh, there were some aliens there. Alright. So we could build a wormhole station out here. Yeah, this isn't too bad. Alright, once first we're done constructing this little mining station here, which we need because we do not have enough energy. So we need to start harvesting energy from this gas giant. Completed construction of a mining station. Alright, constructor ship. Thank you. And you'll notice that this number now turns green, indicating we are harvesting from that area. We're harvesting 2 energy credits. And we are not harvesting 2 engineering research, not energy research. And then out here, we've encountered some form of alien in the Villa system. These certain subjects have been flagged as alpha aliens until we can learn more about them. Enigmatic spacefarers. I see. Well, look at that. These are actually what we call space whales. I know because I've already researched these kinds of aliens. They're kind of neat. They just sort of float through space and fly by gas giants. They're perfectly pacifistic. But as you study them and learn them, they will actually unlock special technologies you can only get by researching them. There are, throughout the galaxy, I think, what, a dozen different kinds of passive aliens and some impassive aliens. Everything from gas clouds that like to shoot lightning at you to crystalline beings that float around. You can find these aliens and collect unique technologies from them. Some of them are actually really good. That's definitely worth noting. So, because we picked Wormhole, we have to build these wormhole stations near the edges of systems. And you can pretty much just get down to that right away.
Construction complete.
Alexandria has finished its surface construction queue. Remember at the start of the game, I told it to start building various buildings. And our population is slowly growing. Every time that we create a new population, based on the food surplus, we get a growth rate. So in this case, it's 4.9% a month. And we can see that this number is growing. Yes, it's a good omen. His passing was uneventful. It is a good omen. So, as we were saying, and you'll notice this corresponds to this little bar here. Very conveniently, you can move pops around as you wish, but generally you don't do that. Unfortunately, we don't have that much space, and we're going to have to start clearing out, say, sprawling slums in order to make room for more population. Good. And now our new wormhole station is ready, so if we select here, you'll notice that we now have effectively 2 circles of traveling distance. Now, if I want to travel here, I have to go from Wormhole Gate to the system. But if I just want to travel out here, I can travel directly from this Wormhole Gate out to here. And we can continue exploring beyond the frontier and into reaches unknown. And every so often, we just have to construct a new Wormhole Gate. Keep in mind, if they're blown up, sometimes contact in various parts of your empire can become a bit of a tricky little thing. So, you know, for war, when fighting against Wormhole Gate empires, consider destroying as many of them as you can. It can greatly help out. And restrict their movements. Advanced tactics. And so as we see here, we can also begin building ships. Oh, no, we can't. We're poor. because we don't produce enough minerals. We're trying, though, right? Yeah, we've got some lovely mining networks that are working day and night to try and get us some additional resources. Unfortunately, we don't really know that much about the stars around us. So what I can do is actually start queuing up this thing to start surveying the system. And I'd totally forgotten to survey even my own home system. Probably the first thing you should do in any game, start surveying your own home system. It's really easy to do with the galaxy map because you can just right-click and survey the system. I highly recommend sending a military vessel to any system first before you survey it, because sometimes there are just hostile entities that decide to eat your research ship. I'm totally not speaking from experience at all. I don't know what you're talking about. There. And so, warp around and just sending even a ship through for a second is enough to get a scan of the system, and sometimes find other horrifying things. Yeah, these beta aliens are just automated mining drones from eras long gone that sit around and mine this planet. The good news is that tells us that there's probably some good minerals on that planet, and might be worth checking out in the future. Unfortunately, we are not capable of fighting them, so we're not going to be able to survey this system because it's got hostiles in it. Even more so, it would appear that we have found a lovely gas cloud that wants to come shoot lightning at us. Okay, we're going to cross that system off being surveyed until... Ooh, alien proto-civilization encountered. We'll get to that in a moment. Until we can get a more powerful fleet to clear it off with. In addition, we've come across, on this world here, a Stone Age primitive, which is very good. Because now... we can actually build observation. No, we can't, right? Plant post-Neolithic. Well, excuse me, princess. Eventually, they might advance into the Bronze Age, and we'll be able to study them then. But, yeah. Unfortunately for now, this simply means that without the appropriate laws, we cannot colonize this planet. Which kind of sucks. Now, what appropriate laws do you mean? Well, if we go to policies, native interference, unrestricted. You must neither have the xenophile or pacifist ethics, making pacifist extremely restrictive as well as xenophile. This is worth keeping in mind, and it can severely hurt you if you have these ethics, but in my opinion they make it more fun and interesting. Surveys continues, bit of energy credits from that star, but not much. We've now got Delta aliens. Jesus Christ, we're discovering aliens all over the place. And so tell me, what are you? Oh my. This is a science vessel. Has unknown capabilities, but it's now scanning this planet. You know what that tells us? Well, that tells us one simple thing. That tells us that's another empire. Pro tip, neutral aliens don't run around scanning stuff. Now, here we can start investigating certain aliens. So, up until now, I've been pretty confident in saying that the Alpha aliens are not an empire, the Beta aliens are not an empire, and the Gamma aliens aren't an empire, because I'm pretty certain there's no empires that are made of electric clouds that shoot stuff. But the Delta aliens look a lot like an empire, so if we start researching them, we could gain contact with them and open diplomatic stuff, and actually start trading and talking to them, and perhaps make an ally. Also, we can start researching some of the neutral things here. Now, these are special projects that come up in your situation log. There are various ones, but the important thing to note for most of them is that it will put your research on hold for the duration. Sometimes, certain special projects require a certain amount of research to be completed. Others, like Investigate Aliens, are simply a fixed time period, which actually makes them really good to do in the early game, when you have very little research. Like, 180 days, 6 months, that means I lose out on 30 science research. If I did this in the late game, when I'm making 200 science a month, then I'd be losing out on 1,200 research. So, in the early days, it's actually a lot better to just do it now. So we'll investigate the gas grazers we came across before, because they might herald some good techs for us. I generally don't bother actually researching other empires too much. I generally only investigate the neutral aliens, because I've found that the other empires are more than willing to investigate me and do the work for me, and establish contact. Sometimes it takes a little while, but very quickly I find, in a matter of no time.
Research complete. Alien vessel situation log updated.
Investigate the Zeta aliens. Epsilon aliens. How many aliens are we running into? Jesus. Alright. Here we can start researching new bits and pieces for our ships as well. Fusion power will be important. And I see we've run into even more aliens. Holy crap, enough with the aliens. Unfortunately, until we start producing more warships, it's simply not going to happen.
Project complete.
Special project completing. The spaceborne life forms, which the Polymerinae head of society research has come to refer to as the Tyanki, are docile creatures capable of accessing some lower dimensional subspace. They roam from system to system with relative ease, though nearly the same ease as Polymerinae fleets. They gaze on gases common to the upper layers of many gas giants. It's highly unlikely, to say the least, that this is their only food source, but the intake of other nutrients is yet to be observed. They will rarely, if ever, attack, even when provoked. They can be safely ignored. Hunting them would be a net loss anyway. So unfortunately, while we did undertake this special project to investigate the gas grazers, we got nothing out of it. And that's unfortunate. Sometimes some aliens will, give you more intel about them. And good, we've unlocked fusion power. Alright, and Mr. AI, sure. So, now that we have new parts, we can go into the ship designer. Now, while a ship designer will give you automatic designs, I generally recommend you trash them. They're awful, and they don't upgrade at all. So we're going to make a new warship, a new corvette. This allows us to choose a section. Each class of ship, going from corvette, destroyer, cruiser, and battleship, each gain an additional section. Ooh, an anomaly. We'll get to you, don't worry. It's okay. So, for now, I can only choose crummy little corvette cores, and I only get one of them. So we'll choose, say, the striker core. Yeah. This lets us choose a medium gun, so we can put mass drivers on this, and that's good. Except that it costs us power to do that. So what do? Well, we have to go down here, and we have to put in a fusion reactor, which actually gives us enough power. A small fusion reactor generates 15 power. That's all we can really put on this, as we haven't unlocked armor or shields to go there. And we haven't unlocked advanced combat computers, engines, or scanners. So designing corvettes in the early game generally pretty easy, but this is a decent upgrade. So it is worth it for us. It's definitely worth it for us. Every time you unlock a few new pieces of technology, you want to come back to the ship designer and just put it together. It's worth noting that the order and position that you put things in does not matter, as long as it is, in fact, on a weapon slot or a utility slot. The weapon slots being along the top, utility slots being along the bottom. Now, finally, after a lot of work, we've come across an anomaly, which is actually surprising. Usually you find one or two very quickly. But our scientist has not yet researched this. So, an anomaly carries a failure risk depending on the scientist's skill level and additional traits he may possess. As you know right now, all he possesses is resilient, so he'll last longer. But instead we can just simply click that, and it will install a command for it to research the anomaly, which will then come down and do. He has a 40% risk of failing and getting nothing out of it, but a 60% chance of success and getting something out of it, which is important. Anomalies are definitely always worth researching, because you never know what you're going to get. You can get entire new bonuses. From an anomaly, I've gotten a permanent plus 5% energy credit increase. It's amazing. For, just coming across the thing here. Old-timey tunes. A golden disc strikes the forward viewport of the HMS Nacht Yibarax as it is surveying the weak gravitational field of THX 413. The object is recovered in cursory analysis indicates that as a minuscule grooves on the disk surface might be encoded audio or video data, authored by some alien civilization. So right now I'm given a choice of 120 engineering or 120 society research and 200 XP for my leader, in addition to starting an event chain,
Situation log updated.
which will go to my situation log for. They seem to originate here. Be prudent to investigate. So, this one, yes. Track. Here we go. So I now have a mission to go to here. I don't know what's here, and I would have to extend my wormhole range out there pretty far to do it. As you can see, I'd have to build one, to be generous here and say 2. I'd have to build at least 2 new stations to get out there, and it'd be a lot of work. But if I do it, who knows what's on the other end? Maybe I'll find something useful. It's a gamble that you have to choose whether or not to take. Anyway, I think that about sums up a lot of the stuff that you need to know. In addition here, you can open up the contact screen and make contact with aliens. I was kind of hoping that by now we would have... Well, you know what, I really probably should. For the sake of it. The Delta aliens, I can safely say, are, without question,
System survey complete.
an empire, so we'll get their contact number. Won't take long. I think it's 6 months. And we'll head out here and slowly begin extending the wormhole station network in this direction. Trying to make it, you know, over to the sun, which we might just find the Earth system. It's very possible to find Sol and Earth planets as well in the galaxy from time to time. Not always, but sometimes. Especially so if you choose Sol to be your starting system. There we are. We successfully translated their language. We've established communications with the polity of Tharbik. Diplomatic channels are now open and all hostilities have been terminated. Greetings from the polity of Tharbik. We are a democratic nation committed to upholding the individual freedoms of all citizens regardless of their species. Our elected leader, President Kunda Tad, hopes for a long and fruitful relationship with your people. You'll find us no match for us. First alien encounter. This changes everything. So, they are xenophile, pacifist, spiritualists, who are an indirect democracy of spiritual seekers. This is more or less just an AI personality. Spiritual seekers, you can get a lot of different ones of these. So, and that will greatly react to how they offer to certain trade deals. So, if I trade research with them, that's because of wary attitude, okay. Spiritual seekers. Is there going to be wary attitude? Border access. Won't trade civilian access due to wary attitude. Well, they apparently won't do much due to a wary attitude, so it's hard to show off the kinds of effects that AI personalities will have. But hey. Won't trade it once trade away less of the following resources, minerals. Alright, so they're poor. Just a thought, though. So keep an eye on what the little guy, or what the little text box says here, because that's going to affect how the AI plays. Basically, it's their form of roleplay. You'll note if you click on a player, they completely lack this. We are ourselves, and we are not slaves to some 2-word descriptions. All right, and this sums up just about everything you need to know to get yourself started. There's still a lot to explore, and sometimes, you know, there are going to be things that I can't tell you how to do. That's, unfortunately, most of this game. That's part of the fun of this game, though. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. This has been your lovely host, Calvin, signing off.